Anytime a crime is committed, it is an absolute tragedy for both the victims' families and the community at large. But when the victim is an underage girl and the perpetrator is in fact a police officer, well, it really makes you just lose complete faith in humanity. And that is what we are going to be talking about today. We are going to go over everything we know in the Sandra Birchmore case. And before we get in, I just want to let you know it is a dark story, so please take care of yourself today. Now sit back, try to relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cult, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. So if you like videos like this, please consider subscribing. I would absolutely love to have you here. I also forget to mention every single video that I have a membership and a Patreon. So if you would like to sign up for either of those, please check the description down below. I just forget mentioning them in every single video because I really hate being salesy and being, one of those YouTubers. But if you are interested in becoming a member or a Patreon supporter, you can do so by clicking on those links down below. I feel like everyone is talking about this case, and it's hard to not feel like you're just speaking into the ether or just trying to hear yourself talk. But something about this situation that I feel like, maybe it's because I'm a highly emotional person, but this is one of those cases where it's, yes, you want to avoid being too sensationalized about what's going on, but also show the absolute disgust and frustration about what's going on, because this is something that should just not ever happen. And the fact that it happened in the same area where the whole Karen Reed situation happened, it makes you wonder, what is going on in Massachusetts? What is going on? No child should go enroll in a camp and have to worry that they are going to get involved in a relationship with one of their teachers or counselors. Specifically, the fact that this was a police officer who was teaching her. This guy should have known. This guy is disgusting. And I understand it's important to not play into some of the sensational aspects of cases, but this isn't sensational to me. This is a child who was taken advantage by someone in a position of power who allegedly killed her, and then allegedly the whole police department just covered it up. Oh, she did it to herself. Really? I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because this makes me so angry, so incredibly angry. And without further ado, let's jump right into this case. So what we knew about this case before it kind of blew up recently was that Sandra Birch Moore was a 23-year-old girl who had become pregnant and ended up taking her own life in her bedroom back in 2021. Almost immediately, this was deemed an unaliving, and everyone just kind of went along with it. And fun fact, I believe this was the same medical examiner that was involved and is a star witness in the Karen Reed case. It just makes you wonder, is this person fit for their job? But I digress. So Sandra's family was convinced that there was no way she would unalive herself. She was excited about being a mother. She was looking forward to it. She was planning a baby shower. She had these little signs in her room wanting to announce that she was pregnant. She was very excited with what was going on in her life, seemingly. And I want to mention here, as someone who has had a loved one unalive themselves, you can't always tell. There aren't always signs that someone wants to do that to themselves. My friend was one of the happiest people I'd ever known in my life. And It was absolutely shocking to all of us when he took his own life. But all of Sandra's friends and family are adamant that there's no way she would have done this to herself. And the crime scene itself was very suspicious, and she was making plans. And I do agree that if someone is planning on unaliving themselves, it would be strange to be setting plans in motion while also planning that. But again, it's very, very difficult to determine whether or not someone is showing signs that they might do something like that. That's why it's always really important to check in on your loved ones, because it's not something people just talk about, and the signs that something like that could happen are very, very unclear. So I just want to say that up front, because throughout this case, that's been something that's been irking me a little bit, is people will willy-nilly spout out, oh, she didn't show signs that she wanted to unalive herself. And people really don't always show signs. And I just want to be very delicate about that. There are signs to look out for, in which case you should reach out and check in with your friends, but it is not 100% across the board that the signs are there, I guess I want to say. I'll leave some resources down below if you want to do a little bit more research into some of those signs. But anyways, let's jump back into this case. Her friends and family were convinced that there was no way she would have done this to herself. She had been making just too many plans to have this baby, have a life, make sure the father was on the birth certificate because he was having an affair with her and was trying to resist stepping up and actually being a father. But at the time of her, I'm going to start calling it a murder now, allegedly, not all of this information was completely fully known. So her family actually filed a wrongful death lawsuit and sparked an investigation on the federal level into the allegations that a cover-up had happened. And so thanks to this investigation, we now know a lot more details. And I am going to go ahead and jump into those details now, and I just want to let you know it is really, really disturbing. So we are going to go over the timeline from the moment that Sandra met her alleged killer up to now. What's going on right now? So we're going to rewind 14 years and go back to 2010 when Sandra was only 12 years old. She's 12. She's a child. My little sister's almost 12. Our neighbor's kid is about 12. I can't imagine somebody targeting someone that young. It is so disgusting, but I am getting ahead of myself. So we're going to rewind back to March 2010. Sandra is only 12 years old. I'm going to continue reiterating her age. She is 12 years old, depending where you live, still in elementary school or just about to step into middle school. And she's really curious about law enforcement and what police officers do day to day. She's really, really curious about what it's like to, catch criminals and lock them up and what kind of evidence you need. I mean, honestly, if you're a true crime buff like me, which I'm guessing you are if you're watching this, you probably would be into that as a kid. I know I would have been. I would have been so excited to get involved in an organization like this. This was called the Stoughton Police Explorers Academy. Sandra got accepted into the Police Explorers Academy. And I'm sure it was a wonderful experience for her for the first couple of years. And that's probably because the disgusting man who is at the center of all of this was not yet hired at this particular police department. Almost exactly 2 years later, in March 2012, Matthew Farwell would end up getting hired at the Stoughton Police Department and end up becoming one of the instructors for the Explorer Academy. And he was really excited about this because he had apparently been in the Explorers when he was a kid as well. And it's really creepy to me when you hear that at first, because it's like he must have understood then how much a child is going to look up to the teachers. Imagine being a 14-year-old kid and you have a role model who is a police officer in your town. You would probably be a little enamored with them. You'd look up to them. You'd see them as a role model. And especially since they're a police officer, you would want to make sure that you do everything they say. They are the authority, quite literally. So you probably believe that everything that this person is telling you is true, and all the actions that this person is encouraging you to do is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm going to reiterate, Sandra was 14 when she met this man. About 6 months later, in October of 2012, Sandra's 15 at this point, still underage because the legal age of consent in Massachusetts is 16, which, what? Why is it so young? Anyways, she is 15 years old in October when Matthew Farwell sends her a friend request on Facebook. Yeah, the adult, the guy who is 27 years old at this time, sends a minor, a teenager, a Facebook friend request. Can we maintain some boundaries, please? Some decorum, some professionality? There is absolutely no reason that a 27-year-old cop needs to be in communication with a 15-year-old girl. No reason. None at all. So they start talking for several months, and as I'm sure you can guess, the communication only accelerated. There are a ton of text messages and exchanges between the two of them, and they are very, very, very disturbing. What's even more crazy to me is that a few months after Matthew Farwell sent Sandra a friend request and is chatting with her, he's in the middle of planning a wedding. Yeah, he got married the next year in March of 2013. Imagine being the wife. Imagine being his wife and now learning that while you were planning what was supposed to be the most special day of your lives together so far, he is a teenage girl. It is disgusting. And what's even more disgusting is 1 month later, he actually has, or as one should be calling it because she was still 15 and he was 12 years older than her, he R-worded her. A month after his wedding. What kind of sick person does something like this? We have covered so many deranged people on this channel, and this is absolutely one of the worst people I've covered. He should be absolutely ashamed of himself. This goes back to 2012. It blows your mind. So after he R-words her, he maintains a sexual relationship with this minor for years. For years, behind his wife's back. And not only is he meeting up with Sandra and picking her up from school, from her probably high school, to go do these things to her, he is also clocking into shifts and meeting up with her while he's clocked in to his shifts as a police officer. And this is where the FBI started to get involved and was really able to track all of this because this is a federal crime. Apparently, this is considered wire fraud because he clocked in and then went and broke a law while he was technically on duty. It's just these criminals that do this stuff and think that they're going to get away with it. And what's even more disgusting about this is he was very close to getting away with it. It has been 3 years since Sandra's murder. And I'm getting ahead of myself once again. I'm very passionate about this case, apparently. This next detail is really disturbing because introducing certain types of or fetishes is fine between two consenting adults who are curious to explore certain things. But Farwell started using sex as almost a punishment to Sandra. If she got bad grades or did or said something he didn't like, he would basically punish her with more rough. He even started wanting to choke her and do other acts that leaned into a more violent territory, in my opinion. If she lied, the would be rough. If she slept with other people, the sex would be rougher. It was like he wanted to control her, and he turned something that should be a beautiful thing between two consenting adults into a form of punishment. And she's not able to consent. She's not able to recognize that what she's doing is wrong, because he's also expecting her to lie for him. Even when her friends started seeing that he would pick her up from school or ask her questions about where she was, she would make lies up like, oh, he's helping me on a project. We're doing homework together. He's helping me out. So he was basically teaching her how to lie, and he was using as a form of punishment and also a way to please and appease him. He is turning her into someone that he is just able to use. She wasn't able to fully understand what was happening to her. This is somebody that she looked up to. He's somebody in law enforcement. He's not going to make her do anything illegal. And the fact that she's slowly becoming more isolated. I mean, she has to lie to her family. She has to lie to her friends. But he is also making her feel special because he picked her. She's a special girl because she did such a good job in this Police Academy Explorer program that this police officer wants to spend more time with her, wants to be intimate with her. She's in the peak of her puberty, and this man who she looks up to is showing her affection and attention and making her feel special. So she gets sucked right into it without even really realizing at all that what he's doing to her is wrong. Because why would he lead her astray? He's an adult and a police officer and highly regarded in the community because he's a police officer. It is disgusting. What's even more disgusting is Farwell wanted to play out his fantasies with Sandra. And one of those fantasies included him wanting to role play her being even younger than she actually was. He wanted her to pretend to be 14. This guy is so deranged. In another instance, he wanted her to role play as a 13-year-old and role play him taking her virginity, which I'm sure you guessed he had already done. And he wanted her to say, Matt, stop. Oh my God, I'm not ready for this yet. I'm only 13. Please stop. This is all in textual evidence, mind you. He would also end up telling her that he knew he wanted to sleep with her when he started helping her with her schoolwork. If we really think about this timeline, you are literally starting a new job in a new district, and you meet a girl. You are most likely planning a wedding, and you decide to start tutoring a young girl, and then you decide you want to sleep with her, and you continue to engage in that impulse and desire, and then you get married, and then you just keep up this affair with this child? What is wrong with you? So this is going on from 2012 all the way up to 2020. And yes, by now, Sandra is past the age of consent. She's technically an adult, but she's been since she was 13, 14 years old. And she's stuck in this relationship with this creepy old man. So this has been going on for a long time. By 2020, we see evidence as to what they would use almost as a code to meet up. And we'll go over some more of their texts a little bit later. But we're in 2020. It's 8 years since this has started. And Sandra is now just about 22 years old, and they are still meeting up regularly. Something he would say to Sandra when he was on the clock was, I'm going to sneak away for a little bit. And that would indicate to her that they were going to meet up to have. Now, I can only imagine keeping a secret from your friends and family this big would be so difficult. So later that year, in October of 2020, Sandra actually opens up to a friend and admits that she's been having this affair for almost 10 years, and it started before she was 16. Now, we have to kind of start thinking about Sandra's brain becoming more and more developed. She's gotten far more well-educated than when she was 12 years old, trying to do this basically summer camp for future cops. And she's, in college, she's meeting new people, meeting new friends. I think that she was talking to more people and starting to see that she was not being treated well. She had been this guy's side piece since she was a child while he got married and had multiple children. And so by the time that Farwell's wife was pregnant with their third child, Sandra was just about ready to leave. She was frustrated, she was aggravated, and allegedly she had gotten pregnant by him previously and had ended up having a miscarriage, unfortunately. So when she became pregnant again with his child, she was elated. But back in October of 2020, when she found out that he would be welcoming another third child into his life with his wife, it had to just be heartbreaking for her. She had lost a child that she would have had with him, and then finds out from someone else, not from Farwell, but from someone else, that him and his wife are about to welcome their third child into the world. It would be gut-wrenching. Especially, you're in your formative years. You're trying to figure out how to be an adult. You're trying to figure out where your place is in this world. So because of this, Sandra is like, I'm going to send a text to your wife and tell her everything that's been going down between us for the last 8 years. It is insane. So obviously, Sandra is heartbroken because of this news. She wants to have a child. So Sandra has had enough. She's like, I'm coming clean. How dare you be happy with your wife when I just lost our baby and I'm a secret and you're not there for me and I'm learning all this new information. I'm trying to figure out my place in the world and I feel stuck with this guy who doesn't treat me well. I'm starting to finally realize that he is not treating me well. So she's like, hey, I am going to tell your wife everything if you don't help me make another child. She literally gave him that ultimatum. Allegedly, she had a text drafted, ready to send to his wife. So they started having planned around her ovulation cycle, which to me, I'm like, dude, isn't this a sign that maybe you should cut this thing off now? Or come clean? How long are you going to go on with this charade? Break up with Sandra and let her go live her life. Let her go to school. Let her move from this godforsaken town where the police apparently just cover up crimes willy-nilly. Let this girl go live her life and find someone that actually cares about her. Let her go. Let her find someone that actually cares about her and wants to have a family with her. So later that month, they get into an argument about this whole conception agreement. And all of a sudden, Farwell's like, no, we're only going to do this while you're ovulating one time. But Sandra was like, no, buddy, I hold the cards here. I want to have a baby with you. And later on in November, she would be like, I want you to be there for my child. I want you to sign the birth certificate. And he just starts getting panicked. He does not want his name attached to a child that he has had with someone that he from the time she was 14 or 15 years old. He has to see that this house of cards is crumbling to the ground. So just after Christmas in 2020, on December 28th, Sandra texts Matthew a picture basically announcing that she's pregnant, and he is fuming. He is not happy. And it's like, what did you expect was going to happen, dude? What did you expect was going to happen? Meanwhile, his wife is literally 8 months pregnant with his third child. Make it make any sense at all. Please, for the love of God, what is going on in this guy's head? He could end this at any time. They both could end this at any time, but this poor girl has been since she was a teenager, and he should be the responsible one who says, this is inappropriate, we should cut this off, I should not be doing this, I need to get out. He her into being kind of like codependent on him in a little way. Keep all of his secrets, fulfill all of his fantasies. And the second she wants something from him, he's like, oh no, you must be jealous of my wife. Of course she is. You've made her the side piece for her whole life. It's actually laughable, some of the texts that Farwell sent to her when he found out she was pregnant. One of them reads, "You are truly the worst person on the face of the earth." Really, bro? Her? Her, who's 12 years your junior? For the past week and a half, the doctor wasn't right, but now she was, and you just throw it at me because you've got me. You honestly have absolutely no idea how to treat people. That's laughable, dude. I have effing bent over backwards for you. Now you want to act like this is some free will decision? You have threatened me from the word go. If I didn't do and give you what you wanted, you would ruin me. I made a deal with you and you changed the terms at every turn. We will deal with this tomorrow. And then the very next day, they meet up to talk in person. So obviously, Sandra needs people to lean on. She's already kind of shared like, hey, I've been sleeping with this married cop since I was 15 years old. The situation's really messed up. And she starts confiding in her friends. And she tells one in particular in January of 2021, like, hey, I'm pregnant with this guy's child and he's acting really crazy and I don't know what to do about this situation. And she also discloses that Farwell had actually been kind of violent with her. He like tried to take her phone when they talked and like put her in a headlock and was acting really strange. He like was inspecting her apartment and like looking in this closet, and she remembered being like, what is he doing? What's going on? So this is when things get really serious, and it makes the Stoughton Police Department look really messed up because the friend that Sandra confided in actually took it upon themselves to call the police department and report Farwell to his very own police department. And that police employee, instead of actually like running this up the chain and being like, hey, there's a situation happening, she goes directly to Farwell and is like, hey, someone's on the phone claiming that you got someone pregnant and that you were very threatening to them. And what does he do? He tries to squash it, tells them to never talk about it again, and then angrily texts Sandra, how dare you let your friend call my job? Maybe consider the consequences of your actions, dude, before you decide to make those choices, before you decide to do those actions. This is on you, dude. So on February 1st, 2021, Sandra is at home. She orders DoorDash and she texts Farwell asking him to come over so they could continue discussing their situation. She apparently leaves the front door of her apartment building that's normally secured. She leaves it open and unlocked for him so he can basically show up, not get buzzed in, and get right up to her apartment. So he is seen on video surveillance entering that building at 9:15 p.m. and he is fully covered. He has a hoodie on, he has a face mask on, fully like hoodie, jeans, covered head to toe. Looks pretty suspicious. I mean, it is February. Maybe you could argue, oh, that's just a dude trying to like warm up, but it's very clearly, he has been identified as the person in the video. That same person is seen quickly exiting the building at 9:45 p.m. that same night. And sadly, that 30-minute window from 9:15 to 9:45 p.m., when Sandra was supposed to be celebrating the eventual birth of a new child with the child's father, he allegedly took her life. And this timeline makes a lot of sense because the very next day, his wife gives birth to their third child. The very next day, February 1st, he murders allegedly this girl, and February 2nd, he welcomes in new life into the world. If that doesn't show you a very clear and distinct motive, I really do not know what does. So Sandra doesn't show up for work, and her coworkers ended up asking the police to do a wellness check on her. And, you know, I got to hand it to these coworkers because in the last couple cases I've covered on my channel, it's been like, thanks to the coworkers that someone finally alerts the police to a missing person case. or in this case, unfortunately, and honestly, in my previous one, most likely a murder. So when the police show up to her house, they end up entering her apartment, and she is found in kind of like a reclined position with a bag strap around her neck that's connected to the closet door. And it was almost immediately ruled to be an unaliving. And immediately when I heard this, before I did my research, when I first just heard about how she was found, I was like, I don't know how that makes real logical sense. Like, how would you actually go through with an unaliving in that way? Like, I know it's like, oh, you just like, you're away from the closet door and you close it, but you would have to close that door with such a ferocious force and have to almost like snap your own neck in order to like be successful in taking your own life in that way. It just feels really like far-fetched to me. And one of the most, it would have to be one of the most like painful, difficult ways to go. Because even if someone were to take their own life by hanging, there is that strangulation time, and it's like, I think up to like a minute long for someone to be strangled. But I feel like with this method, she would have had to like have gotten her neck totally snapped. And this feels like so gruesome to talk about, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Even before I knew about the affair and all of this, it just raised these red flags, because I just haven't heard of many unalivings that have happened in this way. And there's been a lot, and obviously there's been a lot of criticism to the police department, because they were basically like, yeah, this is an unaliving right off the bat. And it's like, but she was planning a baby shower. Like, she had a necklace that she always wore that was like on the ground, not on her person. And it was ripped. It looked like it had been like ripped off of her because it was undone, but not where the clasp was. It looked like it had been like broken off. So there were already red flags. The crime scene was not processed appropriately. And then we had the medical examiner deem it an unaliving. And this is the same medical examiner that has been allegedly a little fishy in the Karen Reed case. So it just makes this whole situation look so messed up. And what's also fishy about this is his twin brother was working at the same police department. So it's just raising all of these red flags about this guy. And we haven't even started talking about his false statements to the police that he would make later. The very, very strange Google searches where he's like, how can you get rid of text message evidence for good? It's like, you are a cop, dude. You should know that technical forensics is so advanced now that they're going to be able to go into like the metadata and figure out who you were texting and what you were saying. And speaking of that, I do want to share some of the more damning text exchanges between the two of them. These are exchanges that I found in the affidavit, and they're very, very unsettling. So it starts off with Sandra. I had butterflies so bad the day you took my virginity. He says, me too, it was such a big day. Still know the date to this day. Really? Yes. That's not a date I'll ever forget. It was April 10th, 2013. Best day of my life. These were texts that were exchanged in 2019. Talking about how he had taken her virginity 6 years prior when she was 15 years old. So later, some exchanges show it's almost like Sandra is trying to regain her power in a way. She's like, I'm not going to be bullied by you anymore just because you're older and you're a cop. Like, she starts recognizing, I could expose you for all the stuff you've done to me. All I have to do is go to the police, maybe a different department, but go to the police or the FBI with all of my receipts. And all I have to do is show them our exchanges and tell them how I met you, and it will all add up. So this text exchange is after she's gotten pregnant. And he says, okay, well, we need to talk then. She says, no shit, that's obvious. And the birth certificate is being signed, or hers isn't. I mean, she's not asking for too much. She wanted the father of her child to be there for her, to be by her side when she had the baby. She was due, I believe, in September of 2021, and his wife was due in February 2021. So she was pointing out some very good points, like, hey, I don't know how you're going to be there for both of us. This is going to be your fourth child. How is he going to manage doing all of this? He's putting her in such an uncomfortable situation that she did not ask to be in. She did not actually fully consent to be in. So obviously the family is enraged and heartbroken, and so is the community, their friends. Things just seem really, really fishy. Like they really thought, the police thought they could tie a pretty little bow on this and let it all go. But an internal affairs investigation was conducted, and the results of this internal investigation are harrowing, disturbing, disgusting. It was not only Matthew who was having misconduct with her when she was a minor. 3 other men at that police department. Oh, I'm like getting emotional talking about this. 4 men total, one of which was Matthew's twin brother, who I mentioned worked at the police department. 4 men in total were taking advantage of Sandra because she was curious about what it's like to be a police, and was kind and warm and loving and open and honest and sweet. And they totally ripped her innocence from her. She was a young, impressionable girl. And these men, I mean, no wonder she started trying to like step into her power a little bit more as time went on, because she's been taken advantage of since 2013, like for 8 years. And they really thought they could just cover it up. They really thought that they could cover this up. It is disgusting. And so luckily, almost 1 year to the day, Sandra's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit. They filed this on December 29th of 2022, and they name all of these people as conspirators and perpetrators and predators, basically, because that is what they are. So in June of this year, the family hired a different medical examiner, and this medical examiner ruled that Sandra's death was due to homicide, not suicide. And that was as recent as June 18th. And even more recently, on August 28th, Michael was indicted and charged on 1 count of murdering a witness or victim. This is basically implying that he murdered a witness, Sandra, because she had information and evidence about him. She would be essentially the witness to that case, or if the FBI had brought those wire fraud charges against him when he claimed to be working, but he was actually breaking the law by having it with the minor, she would have been someone that they could have gone to testify. And so I believe that they're going that route instead of like first-degree murder, because they want him to get the like strongest possible conviction and stay in jail for as long as possible. Although he has pled not guilty to the charge, which, give it up already, dude. Give it up already. It's so heartbreaking. It's so frustrating. And I just feel so much for Sandra, because she was described as being like so kind. All of her pictures look like she just had such a positive outlook on life. She just exuded joy. Like when I look at pictures of her, she just seems like somebody that exudes joy. And it breaks my heart that someone was taken advantage of at such a young age for so long and wasn't able to live life at all, but probably would not have been able to live the type of life she wanted. And it makes me so angry to I am having a hard time reconciling that somebody can do this for so long and then still not just own up to what they did, because on some level he has to know that he's disgusting and he is a danger to society, and his police officer pals were all in on it. This makes me so worried that there are more victims. What if there are more victims? What if there are more cover-ups in this, police department? It's heartbreaking and it's worldview shattering. And props to her parents for still fighting for her justice, because it's one thing to think that your daughter, I'm really trying to not get emotional here. I'm sorry. It's one thing to think that your child took their own life, and it's another thing to find out that she was killed. And it's a total other thing to realize that your daughter had been a victim for almost a decade, and all the things that you probably would have done or tried to do if you knew that she was a victim for so long. And that someone that you thought you could trust, someone who you'd probably had conversations with, someone that you paid your tax dollars to serve and protect your community, that includes your child, you now find out while you're grieving about all of these disgusting things that were going on. My heart breaks for her family. It really, really breaks for her family. I'm sorry to get emotional. It's just like... I've just watched so many videos about this and read so many articles, and I know when it comes to being a journalist and having journalistic integrity, you should go with things down the middle, but I don't know, this is just really wrecking me for her and her family, because this isn't something that's easy to hear about, easy to read, easy to learn about, and I hope it can serve as some kind of learning experience for parents. It's already so hard to be able to trust who your children are around, and to know now we can't even trust police officers. And I'm not trying to generalize here. It's such an abuse of power, and it's so disgusting. And children are vulnerable, and they deserve more than this. I'm having a difficult time trying to figure out how to wrap this one up today. So my apologies, everybody. I'm already a very highly emotional person. Every friend of mine has seen me bawl a million times. So it was only a matter of time before you would see it on my channel. But maybe it helps us all remember that these are human beings. They're not just stories. These aren't just topics for our entertainment. They're real people that were taken advantage of. They're real families who are having to uncover how much their child was hurt and abused, and it's very, very heartbreaking to me. So my heart really goes out to Sandra's family and her friends, who all probably really, really rallied around trying to help her get out of the situation. And since she probably finally was able to speak with her friends about what she was experiencing, they probably helped her step into her power a little bit more. And I'm proud of her that she was able to do that. And I'm grateful that she was able to share with her friends. And I'm grateful for all of her friends that she felt safe enough to open up with about, and they were able to point out the red flags. You guys are probably part of the main reason why we'll probably get justice for her. So with all of that being said, my condolences to the family. I'm so sorry this happened to her family and her friends, and I'm so sad that this happened to her. And let me know what you think about this case. It's tragic, like I've said, it's tragic when any of this happens. And I think part of it is on my channel, we've been covering a lot of child abuse. So maybe that's partly why it's starting to weigh really, really heavily on me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Please take care of yourself. Look out for red flags. Stay safe, ask questions, and always stay skeptical. I'll be back again next week, but please have a wonderful and safe rest of your weekend, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye.